I'm Carole Royle, and I played the bionic vampire, Kiera, in episode 8, Duel, of Blake 7. And this is Blake 7, The Way Back.
Pursuit 3 reports total power shutdown. They're incapable of further action.
Pursuit 2, commence firing.
Target ship is underway. It's turning.
He's running. There's nowhere to run, Blake! Compute course speed and lock on.
Time distorted 3 and rising. Course 000. They're coming straight at us.
Stand by plasma bolts.
Holding course. Computers propose evasive action.
No! Hold your position. They're holding course. They're going to ram us. Evasive trajectory, full thrust.
Controls are not responding. All systems are locked.
Operate boosters.
Still no response.
With an acting career spanning almost 50 years, Carole Royle has played every conceivable role. From Belgian spy in Professionals, a tragic aging model in Black Eyes, a controlling mum in Coronation Street, and the Mutoid in Blake 7. Today we get to chat with Carole about her long career and also about a small job that only lasted a couple of weeks, but people are still discovering or rediscovering today thanks to the Blake 7 Blu-ray releases. Welcome, Carole, to Blake 7, The Way Back.
Thank you very much. Lovely to meet you both.
It's lovely to meet you too. We've been very excited and looking forward to you. We discussed your episode at length a week ago. But can we start at the beginning? Do you want to tell us a little bit about where you were born and where you grew up?
Sure. Well, I was born in Blackpool, and my voiceover agent at one point rang me and said, could you do a Blackpool accent for something that we need? And I said, well, I can do a very good northern accent because my father was a Yorkshireman and I'm half Yorkshire and half Scottish. I said, but I have to own up to something. I was only in Blackpool for about 2 hours because I was there. I went there and was born at the Victoria Hospital because my father was living in Sheffield. And so everybody says I was born in Blackpool and imagines that I was there for some time, but I really wasn't. But my father was an actor, Derek Royle. My mother was a makeup artist, Jane Royle. And so we were very peripatetic all the time. And my grandfather, Captain Stanley Royle, ran the Hillsborough Boys Club in Sheffield. And so a lot of time was spent up north.
So you come from a very performing family. Is that why you decided to become an actress, or was there something else behind it?
No, it will be that, I suppose if you're born into a family and you get used to it, it's why my late husband's best friends, her son is now a doctor since his best friend was a consultant surgeon and so on. It's what you're used to. And my father was in the theatre in Birmingham, the Alexandra Theatre, for many, many years, run by the wonderful Derek Solberg. And I used to spend an awful lot of my time there backstage at the Alexandra Theatre. And I thought that all children, sat in theatres and watched their fathers on stage. And indeed, I remember one occasion, health and safety not being quite as strict as it was then, trying to wheedle my way onto the stage, being allowed to stand in the wings, just sort of inch by inch, trying to get further onto the stage. Goodness knows if anybody saw me, and somebody must have hauled me back because I never did make it onto the stage. Eric Morecambe and Ernie, they were doing a gig there once, and they came back to our flat in Sutton Coldfield, and we had a big red sort of velvety sofa, and Eric was sitting on it. And I got up on the sofa behind him with my comb and started to comb his hair because I loved combing everybody's hair and wearing everybody's shoes, although not men's shoes, only high heel shoes. So I was, a bit of a performer right from the beginning.
Now, your father was mainly a comedy actor. So did you meet with lots of people like Morecambe and Wise in the early days?
Well, yes, I mean, he was part of the, was it called the Theatre of Comedy or the Theatre of Laughter? I always forget. The Brian Ricks Theatre, the Whitehall Theatre. He did Ray Cooney shows, and Ray Cooney is still with us and has had parties every year. So Dad was with that company for many years and did all of Ray Cooney and John Chapman's farces. Dad was brought up in the Hillsborough Boys Club, as I said, and consequently learnt gymnastics, etc. And then he went in and served in national service. And in those days, they asked you what you wanted to train in when you came out of national service. And he said he wanted to go to RADA. And he went to RADA and did, it was 2 years then. I think it might be 3 now, I'm not sure. And farce became his thing. It's not all that he did, but farce became his main thing, comedy and farce.
So how old was it when you started performing and heading towards? Because I think stage was your first love.
Well, yes, stage was my first love, I suppose. And it's what you do most of when you're at drama school. At least it was when I was at drama school, which was 73 to 76. And 3 years, it's probably three still, I think. And I'm sure that now they do an awful lot of film and television training. But in those days, it really was only theatre that you were trained for. So you came out fairly green about movies and stuff. I remember we had one quick lesson with the adorable caretaker of Central. And my friend, Michael Fitzgerald, an actor, and I did a short scene from a Pinter play. And we went into this little room, and the caretaker, whose name I'm ashamed I've forgotten, set up his camera, and we did our little scene, and he shot it on his camera. And that was, in those days, our training for film and television. So you came out, really knowing an awful lot about theatre, voice production and stuff like that. And very little about filming. And that you learnt on the hoof. And in fact, that's how one learns everything, really, isn't it? You learn on the hoof.
Yes. Yeah. So you finished drama school what year?
76.
76. So you had about a year just doing repertoire theatre? What sort of work were you doing when you got out of
I
drama
came out
school?
and went straight into rep and did a stint there, playing a number of different roles. And then I went straight into, I think I did an episode of the racing game. And then I came out from the rep that I did, which was Harrogate rep, and went straight into the Cedar Tree, which was a soap opera, an afternoon soap opera based in the 1930s. And I did that for 3 years. So I'd done rep, and then I went straight into, the racing game. I did an episode of the racing game, and then straight into the Cedar Tree for 3 years, which was great.
Was the Cedar Tree full time? I mean,
Well, there was a short space between series, because it was 3 different series that I did. And it was such a fast turnaround because I can't remember exactly, but I think there were a couple of episodes a week, maybe more. I can't remember. But you didn't, normally in those days, if you were doing a television play or something, you had the joy of having a bit of rehearsal first. There used to be a place the BBC had in Acton called the Acton Hilton, and those were big rehearsal building. And everybody rehearsed there. And it was great because you go into the canteen and, there were all these different people from all these different shows and you all mingled to have your food. And then you went back to your rehearsal room. Life Without George, which I did later, rehearsed there. And the Oxbridge Blues, which I did, was rehearsed there. And it was great, but then they got rid of it. So we had to stay in the Cedar Tree on the set the whole time. It was a permanent set because it was such a fast turnaround. And so you went in and you had all the sets set up and you had your script. And just like a theatre play, you'd hold your script for a bit and then you'd have the producers run and then they'd come in and you would do a run for them. And then they would set up the cameras and then you would go in on one day of the week and shoot it. And that was we only had one day a week off.
Wow. Now, who recorded? Was that BBC or something else? And where was it filmed?
The Cedar Tree was ITV. I think I'm right in saying. Life Without George was, which was a soap opera, a sort of comedy, I should say, with Simon Cadell, and that we did for 3 years as well, 3 different series, and that was BBC.
Now, that time as well, you did the Greek Tycoon, the film.
Oh yes, actually, I'm just thinking. Yeah, that's right. The ITV, it was the ITV because we didn't go to the Acton Hilton. So Cedar Tree was ITV. Life Without George were at the Acton Hilton. That was Beeb. Tuxedo Warrior, and I left the Royal Shakespeare Company to do that film. And it possibly wasn't the best idea in the world to have done that. I'd done a number of things with the RSC. I was there altogether for 6 years, 2 the first time, 4 the next stint, which was in the 90s. But in the 80s, I joined the RSC and did Ophelia in Hamlet and Cressida in Troilus and Cressida and a part in another play, the name of which escapes me, at a theatre just down the road, part of the RSC called The Other Place, it was called. And they asked me to stay on and do a number of other bits and pieces. And I had been asked to do Tuxedo Warrior. And, you look back and you think, I make these decisions for certain reasons. And I wish I hadn't, because to stay at the RSC for longer, I believe, obviously it's hindsight, so you can never know, but I think that would have been the better option. But having said that, to go to Africa was quite an interesting experience, but the film was not something I'm terribly proud of.
Just as a bit of trivia, the other name for that movie was the Omega Connection.
Oh, right. Okay. Well done. Thank you. Because I never really knew it as that.
You have a really beautiful voice. That's one thing that stands out is the way you speak. Is this
Oh,
something?
thank you.
Did you train yourself? Is that something that came through drama school, or have you just always spoken so well?
Trained at drama school in terms of voice production, being able to use your diaphragm and be heard at the back of the stalls. But they don't change the timbre of your voice at all. And in the old days when my father went to RADA, of course, they would get rid of all accents because everybody really should have an RP back in the 50s. And when you watch old movies, which I do these days a great deal because I lost my husband just over a year ago. And I'm not very good with silence. So I listen to things like Talking Pictures all the time. And they all speak like that, rather high and very, very proper and definitely RP. And so the fashions change. And in the old days, they'd get rid of your northern accent. So I'm presuming my father had a northern accent when he was in Sheffield and at the Hillsborough Boys Club, And then he went to RADA and he came out with an RP accent. And my mother was a Scot, but the sort of Scots who have an RP accent. Not quite sure why, but some do and some don't. So all of my Scottish contingent of my family, they're all sort of rather RP. And so I grew up in an RP family, but in terms of the quality of a voice, that I haven't had anything done with that. I know that I have a very strong voice, and I can reach the back of the audience with no mic at all, and have been accused of sounding, not accused in a negative way, because she was wonderful, but accused in terms of my bursting everybody's eardrums when I let loose, being rather like Ethel Merman. So,
It's a
yeah.
nice one to be compared with. Around the time you were finished off the Cedar Tree, you came to do just an episode of Blake 7. Do you have any memories from doing the episode?
Yes, I watched the episode last night, actually. I found it on YouTube.
Oh, what did you
Uh,
think?
yeah, it was great. It was so good. I mean, it's incredible how iconic it's become, and nobody would have known that at the time, would they, when they were shooting it? But I've been to one or two of those things, you know, those gatherings of fans, whatever they're called.
Conventions, yeah.
Yeah, conventions. And well, certainly the fans know more about it than, well, certainly I did. They told me that my name was Kira, and I didn't know that. But in fact, when I was watching it last night, I heard whoever it was it Stephen Grieve saying,
Stephen Greif.
yeah, Grieve saying, you know, your name was Kira. And I thought, oh, that's how that fan knew what my name was.
Tell me something. Do you remember who you were?
I don't understand the question, Commander.
Yes, you do. In your previous life before you were modified. Do you know who you were?
Of course not.
Aren't you curious about it?
No.
I find that hard to believe.
Memory is an encumbrance. All trace of it is removed, and with it, all trace of identity.
And it doesn't concern you?
Why should it? That identity doesn't exist, even in the central computers.
Yes, it does. I know who you were. Your name was Kiera. Kiera.
Kira.
You're very beautiful. Very much admired. Should I go on?
As you wish.
This doesn't interest you at all, does it?
How could it?
Keep watch.
Yes, Commander.
And I had also forgotten, until I saw it last night, that I had actually died. Because a lot of people, when I went to the convention, I've been to a couple, and they said, we wanted to see more of you. And we don't understand why we didn't. And I proposed a possibility of why they didn't. And I was wrong, I think, because I saw that I died last night. And I'd forgotten that
No,
completely.
you were brought back to life. They actually brought you back to life because
Oh,
the final scene in the ship is actually Travis saying
oh,
you're
you're
about to.
right. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
you're right. There was a final scene after that, and I was alive.
The condemned ate a hearty meal. Your failure cost me Blake.
I warned you that my function would be impaired, Commander.
Well, perhaps the court-martial will take that into account. But I doubt it.
Well, in that case, I guess I'm going to have to go back to my supposition of why I didn't come back, and I can't tell you that because it would be rather rude of me up against somebody. I'll tell you a bit. My father, he had, and indeed I had at drama school, learnt how to fight. You learn, you know, a certain amount of everything when you're at drama school, and one of the things that when you are a gymnast or indeed doing fights is your partner has to know what you're going to do. Because if your partner doesn't know what you're going to do, you can have an accident, a bad accident. And during the rehearsal period, something happened where during the process of rehearsals, something happened that was a complete surprise to me. It took me by surprise. And there were just two of us in the rehearsal room, plus the director. And I said to this person. None of the girlies, not Sally, might I add quickly, because she and I fought, and she was delightful. And we had a fight director directing us with that fight. But this person did something very sharply with me, and I said, you can't do that. You have to warn a person when you're going to do that, because otherwise it can be painful and dangerous. And I don't think that person was very happy with me. So I thought, well, maybe, I thought to this man, I said, well, maybe somebody chucked me out. Who knows? Who knows? But seeing it last night, I wish I'd been able to do more because it was such fun. And the cast were just so gorgeous. All of the cast was so lovely. Paul Darrow, what a guy he was, Sally, and they were all delightful to work with. They really were. So I'd love to have done more of that.
Now, in terms of casting, was it Douglas Camfield who cast you? Do you know how
Yeah.
you got cast?
My agent rang and said Dougie would like to meet me. I don't know where we met. I suppose it was some sort of hotel. I remember sitting on a sofa and him sitting opposite me. He said, I wanted you particularly to play this part because you've got quite strange eyes, he said. And I must say that nobody had ever told me that before or mentioned it. But yeah, it stuck with me. Maybe I do have strange eyes. But
I wouldn't say strange eyes, but you have very striking eyes. No one's ever mentioned your eyes because they're very striking.
They have been mentioned before, but I don't know that they've ever got me a job before. But they did get me a job with Dougie. But the shooting of it was seamless, really lovely. And the memory that I had was one of the things was that the extraordinary thing I had on my head, which all of us bionic vampires had on our heads, didn't we? I always used to say it was like a sort of black pimento or a big peppercorn or something. And it was cut out, as you probably note, so that it sat around your ears. So it was like, like a helmet with your ears out. You couldn't see it. When I watched the fight between me and Sally last night, I noted that you didn't actually see, I'd forgotten because I hadn't seen it for so many years, you didn't actually see the point where my head went into the tree trunk. And we had to do it a few times. And because I was going like that with my head against the tree trunk, every time I hit the tree trunk, not with great force, the black hat would go like this on my head. And because of the nature of the thing, my ears would go like that because it was knocking my ears out. So it's a good job that it wasn't seen, really, because I don't think it would have been very attractive.
Was the costume made out of leather?
No, it'll be sort of not leather. It would be that sort of what do they call it? Ciré or something. It's like a very maneuverable kind of plasticky stuff. But the bit where I take my special blood thing out of, plasma thing out of, that was taut. So that was a harder plastic.
Barbara Lane designed your costume. Did you have much contact with Barbara Lane in trying out the costume?
I certainly will have been with the costume designer because you always are. I will have had various fittings because you always do. But what I can't remember is anything else about the costumes except for this hat.
Now, you spent 4 days on location. Do you remember much about the filming situation?
Yeah, I have a vivid memory and was reminded of it last night when watching it. I was up a tree with Stephen, quite high up a tree actually, and two things were going on. Number one, I wanted to spend a penny, which was rather difficult in that suit because you needed to get to a place and unbuckle things and unzip things and, it was a performance. That was the first thing. But the other thing that was really difficult was it was freezing cold. Freezing cold. The sort of freezing cold for me, which makes it actually quite difficult to speak. Because your teeth are chattering, and you're trying to remember your lines, and it's all a bit like that. So that was hell up that tree. And the first thing I did when I got down was run to the honey wagon which is the rather extraordinary name they give for a portable lavatory on film sets.
Now, you mentioned before about you're having the name Kiara. I'm not sure if you know, but that line which was Stephen Greif saying your name is Kiera, you actually correct him and say Kira. And that wasn't part of the script. Apparently, you worked it out with Stephen and the director at the time in terms of a memory coming back. So I'm not sure whether you
Oh, and
remember.
then does he say, yes, you say you do remember. So you do remember before you were made into this bionic vampire. Yeah. Oh, right. Okay. How interesting. Gosh. I wish I could have done more. I wish I
Yes,
could have
well,
done more.
so do
I wish.
we.
I really, and so did a lot of the fans who I saw. I was very complimented, but at the time I never knew. I didn't even know at that point that that character was going to continue. And of course it did, didn't it? Loads of other people came in and
Well,
did
there's
and played
other
my
Mutoids, but
part. They all came in and played my part.
well, it seems that they play them very differently because we're just reflecting on the fact that the following week there was a Mutoid character, but whereas you played the character very emotionless, but with a strength, with an undercurrent of you have got some memory there, but you're not going to reveal it. The next character come along played it with a lot more joy and enjoying death and killing and smiling when they were killing people.
Oh, right.
In retrospect, it was actually because she kept laughing every time it was happening, and
Oh,
that was why she
right.
played the way she did because she thought this is ridiculous. I'm strangling this person. But the two you played very differently, and that's I think just part of your acting styles.
Glenys Barber did some, didn't
That's
she?
right. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she was the
Yeah.
following episode. Do you know Glynis?
Did meet her. I went over to her and I said, "You pipped me to the post on Dempsey and Makepeace, do you know?" And she went, "Oh, I'm sorry about that." And and it was probably because she was the better man, but also I had literally just delivered my son. I was breastfeeding, and all that stuff was going on. I mean, literally the week before the meetings started. And as I say, I'm sure Glenys was the better guy out of us, but I think the powers that be thought it would be very impractical to have this woman breastfeeding all over the place. I remember when my daughter was born, which was 12 years later, I was doing an episode of The Bill. But of course, The Bill, in fact, there were 2 episodes of that particular character because I've done a lot of The Bills, playing different characters in them.
And want the work, and I like your style.
I'm a very successful businesswoman because I know my market. Specialist cars, high performance, new models. My clients come to me with orders, often very specific, and I deliver. Manchester's got too small, so I've come down here to look for some new challenges, and of course a larger supply. Once we've got the cars, we get them made over, and then drive them up north.
If I fit in, just say the word.
Don't be so modest. You'll fit in nicely.
Which is always nice to do. Because I like to think of myself as a character actress, actually, but you don't always get given that opportunity. People sort of like to stick you into categories, But I've done a lot of casualties and I've done a lot of bills. I'm glad you came through.
Your bodyguard threatened me.
Always best to do what Shelley wants.
She said that you did try to contact us.
I tried writing to them. I didn't know what to say. This was the woman who got to keep my boys. And on this particular, with this particular character, I was an EastEnder actually, and a bit of criminal. And she had to do 2 episodes, which was fun. Kate Cheeseman directed, lovely girl. And I was breastfeeding my daughter, and I had a nanny at that time. She came out to the location with Tally, and my daughter's called Talitha, known now as Tally Spear. She's a singer-songwriter. And
okay.
yeah, moving in the right direction. Crossing fingers, but going well. I just had an EP out called Bittersweet, so crossing fingers for all of that. Anyway, breastfeeding her. So the nanny came and everybody stopped filming for a bit, or maybe it was lunchtime. And I went into a little back room and fed her. So, and that was just an episode, 2 episodes. So I think a long running series wouldn't have been right for any of us. Campbell, was he called? He directed a Bond actually later, which my mother worked on. My mum worked on a lot of Bonds and Aliens and things like that as a makeup artist. And he rang me up because I'd done an episode of The Professionals with him. I did 2 professionals, and one of them was with him.
Hello, Helen.
I'm sorry. Do I know you? You?
The prodigal father. Keep looking at your mother's grave. Please. Please try to act normally. I'm sorry if I gave you a shock.
Normally?
There wasn't any easy way of getting in touch with you. There wasn't any way of warning you.
You appear from nowhere after 20 years and say act normally. How did you get here?
And I'm not sure I've got his name right, but he rang me and said, I want you to do this thing, whatever it was, this show. And I said, I've just had 2 wisdom teeth taken out. He said, well, come along anyway. I said, I can't come. Literally, my face was like this. And absolutely, I couldn't show him because we didn't have phones and things. I just couldn't. It was just horrendous. So I said, can I not wait just a couple of weeks? And he said, no, I've got to cast this now. And he cast Lindsay. And I do believe they got married. So I'm responsible for so many people's lives and marriages. All because I was either having my wisdom teeth out or I'd had a baby or something. The way the world
Can I
goes.
just ask, had you worked with any of your cast members in Blake 7 elsewhere, or was that the one and only time you'd worked with any of them?
I think that was the one and only time I'd ever worked with any of them. Yeah, okay. Either before or since. Mm.
That's amazing. So you all had so much work that you haven't crossed paths more often.
I know. It's just the way the cookie crumbles, I suppose, sometimes. And then sometimes you work with the same person over and over, I did Feston in town for a time. There's a fellow in that called Sam. Oh, my goodness, I do apologise to everybody. I can't remember people's names, but he was called Sam. Gorgeous. He was in Feston. And then I did a Father Brown. And he was in that with me. So that was really nice.
Everyone is worthy of forgiveness.
I'm not religious, Father, but I know God cast Satan into hell because there was no redemption for him. It's the same for me.
Do you honestly believe that?
I can't hide it anymore. I got immense pleasure from hurting people, wrecking their lives. Lucia tapped into something and I couldn't resist.
And now?
Not a day passes when I don't feel the conflict of good and bad inside me.
Then unburden yourself. Tell the police everything.
You'll have to do that for me, Father.
Why?
Told you. Can't live with it any longer.
Poison?
I knew one day it would become unbearable. This day.
I need help here!
Just in terms of just finish off with Jewel, because you had after where the location work, you did a day, which is it was only one day in studio that you were in. Just in terms of, do you remember anything about the day in studio at all, or I guess you had a week rehearsal before that?
Yeah, we would have had some rehearsal before that. I can't remember very much about it actually, and I had that thought to myself when I was watching it last night. I thought, look how expertly I seem to be doing these things. I can't remember how I'm doing them. I'm so pleased I managed to pick that up so quickly. So you in the old days, I mean, when you do soap opera now, of which I've done quite a lot, it's quite frightening if you're a visitor. It's not quite so bad if you're a regular, because you get your scripts a couple of weeks in advance. But if you're a visitor, especially just for, a one-off or a couple, you're learning and you're ramming it in really last minute. It's not great. It's not great at all. I don't like that way of working. And then you just go onto the set, you see what you've got to do. You might not have been on the set at all. And everything, including remembering what you've got to say, has to happen straight away, and then a take. And that's soap opera these days.
He was outside, all on his own, poor little thing. I was just driving by. I didn't mean... I only wanted to help him. Take care of him. I didn't mean any harm.
In the old days, as sadly I now have to call them, in the olden days, you got rehearsal period time. So you were au fait with what you had to do. And even if it was just a short rehearsal, you didn't have to just say hello to the props and hello to the cameraman and then shoot it. You actually had a little period of time doing it.
You carry on like that. Oh, don't you dare. This is my flat, Mark. And all those times you came round here, I was here too. And if you felt at home, well, maybe that had something to do with me. I put myself out for you, so you can stay here and do your bit for once.
Which was great. And the other thing that's changed, of course, as well, is things like you'd go up to ATV or Granada or wherever, and you'd know who you were going to see. You would know the costume supervisor. You would know who your makeup artist was going to be because you'd worked with them before. And so it was like going back to a family, and it was just lovely. It was like going back to friends. There was a shortcut where you didn't have to get to know each other again. But then, of course, everything became franchised, and now you just never know who you're going to see and never know what you're going to wear, and everything is quick and it's changed a lot. Films, of course, really have passed me by. On films, it would be great because you do a lot of your research, you do a lot of your learning. In theatre, Terry Hands, who I worked with at the RSC a great deal, and then Theatre Clwyd when he took that over, he liked you to know your lines when you came to start. And that's really great because then you can actually start to think deeper about what you're saying because you've got the learning out of the way. And in the olden days, it used to be like that. And those things I miss very much now in the business. The speed of it all. And movies, you would have had that opportunity because they will have had some rehearsal period, lots of meetings, lots of costumes and stuff. And I know that would have suited me well. But when I talk to my daughter and she says, I'm sorry you didn't go into movies because it would have been great and you would have enjoyed it and you would have been good. And I go, well, thanks. But you know what? When you look back at your life, you might regret quite a lot of things that you haven't done and haven't had the opportunity of doing or mistakenly turned down doing. But I said, the truth is that already I had to have a nanny or an au pair to look after you guys. And motherhood and being a wife was very important to me. So although there are things that I am sad and sorry that I didn't achieve, there's an awful lot else which I was able to achieve. And you have to look at, as you go towards the end of your life, you can get things into perspective a great deal more than you do as you're growing up and going through things and going, oh, why didn't I get that? Or, I did that and it was horrible and I hated it. And you are able to reflect in a much more kind of sensible equilibrium about everything.
So is family what you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, for sure. Because, well, that is the most meaningful thing, And there are some things that I've done work-wise that I'm proud of. And there are some things that I did that I enjoyed greatly. And I've always said, when I do a job, the main thing for me is to have enjoyed it, to have really enjoyed it with the people. And if it isn't a success particularly, that's secondary. I'd rather have enjoyed it and had fun than it be a great success and have been miserable. And sometimes you can get it all, and sometimes you walk away and you just say, "Oh well, that's one of the ones I didn't like."
I mean, looking through your work history, you seem to have had 2 or 3 jobs every year for your whole career.
Yeah.
And mixing in with that's lots of theatre and things. So it doesn't look like you've had much quiet time in your career.
I had one period of being out of work for about 3 years or something, but then I had my young daughter. I think that was she and not my son. And then it's. I don't believe in destiny and that sort of stuff necessarily, but sometimes you look back and you think, well, that was meant to be. That was just sort of meant to be. And it's like now I haven't worked since I lost my husband. And I go, gosh, well, maybe I'm getting older now. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm never going to work again. But then when you look at what it's been like since I lost my husband, and because of the way that we lost him so tragically, I don't really think I would have been able to deal with it, because it's all you can do when something suddenly and shockingly happens, to keep your head above water. My son, who just rang to try and help me with this, he was there for a month and a half. He's in visual effects, my son, as well as being a drummer. And the company he works for, which is so glorious and understanding, and he was able to be with me here in London and just get me through that terrible time of all the stuff that you have to deal with when actually you can hardly breathe, So all those things are so important. And I'm thinking that maybe my not working now has been the best thing for us all, because I've needed to concentrate on so many other things that I've never had to deal with before. So sometimes I think, to do 3 nice jobs a year, couple, whatever, I think that given my temperament and where I feel my loyalties are, was probably the right life for me.
So many marriages in your industry struggle to stay together. You were together, I think, for more than 50 years with your partner.
Yeah,
So
right.
why do you think, what was the special glue with your marriage?
It's funny you should say glue. I used that term in my eulogy to him. Well, first of all, I was 14 when I met him, and he was 18.
Wow.
And we met each other walking along Streatham High Road. We both lived in Streatham. His father was an actor, Bernard Spear, who did many, many musicals in town, and The Mitzvah Boy, and Never Mind the Quality, Feel the Width, and things like that. His mother was originally a dancer. She was an ancestor of Mari Lloyd, and we indeed have Mari Lloyd's cane downstairs with all the diamante on the top. She latterly became a writer and wrote an autobiography about her life as on Ensa in the war, entertaining the troops, and it's called Bring On the Dancing Girls, and so my mother was a makeup artist, an actress when she first met my father, but then she became a makeup artist when I was tiny. and my father was an actor. So Julian and I immediately had all of that background in common. So that was a sort of, a common denominator. And he was very musical. He was going to do a fine arts degree, but he sang and wrote and went into the music industry. His name's Julian Spear, and there's a wonderful tribute to him on Music Week, actually, which I'm very proud of for him. And it was quite nice, actually, to have somebody who wasn't an actor, because I do remember quite a famous actress I was sharing a dressing room with once, and her husband was about to become massive and did become massive. And she said, it's really difficult because now I'm never quite sure who that telephone call is going to be for. Or is it going to be for me, or is it going to be for him? And of course, we didn't have any of that because we were in different businesses, and that worked well. He understood the theatre, and I loved the music business, and I love that Tally is now in it. And I go to all her gigs. I mean, I'm crazy about young blood and people like that. I'm very, very much an old rocker. So I think it just and we met when we were that young, but we didn't stay together. We were on off for many, many years actually. But we finally, when I went to drama school when I was 19, we were together, and he used to bring food over for me and my friend Deborah, because we didn't have any money at all. And we'd go to a Chinese restaurant and choose between having a glass of wine and a poppadom or proper food. And of course, we always chose the poppadom. So Julian would come and bring food around, stores for us. And then we got married in 1977. I was 23 and he was 4 years older than me, and we've been together ever since. So it's hard because I've never lived alone. So it's hard to deal with, and I'm not sure he'd be much better than me at tech either. So even if he were here, we probably still would be on the phone.
Well, I just wanted to jump in there because despite the audio company Big Finish having quite a connection with Blake Seven, you worked for Big Finish 3 years ago in a Doctor Who related spin-off with Alec Kingston doing a River song.
Yes.
What are your memories of that? Have you got anything you can tell us about that experience?
Yeah, it was great. It was nice to see Alex again because we'd done Love's Labour's Lost together at the RSC for Terry Hands. Cool. So we knew each other from there. And so it was great to see her again. I would love to have done more in the world of voiceovers, but really haven't.
Jimmy, my love.
Mrs. Prendergast, please.
But he's so close, Stanley.
I know he is.
So very, very close. Wait, do you feel that? I think he's nearly here.
What was that?
The front door.
Well, the dead do not stroll in from the snow, Mrs. P. It appears you have a visitor.
But I never have visitors.
You have one now. Go and see who it is and get rid of them.
Of course, Stanley. One moment. Oh. Good evening.
Mrs. Prendergast?
Yes?
Sorry to disturb you. My name is River Song. I hope you don't mind. I asked who lived here.
Are you here to speak to the dead?
You know, Mrs. Prendergast, I believe I am.
I've done...
Which is surprising with your voice, actually.
Yeah, well, who knows how it all works. And I don't have a home office, at a home studio thing now, and I think you really need to. There's so many people who have their own little studio at home. And I'm not ambitious enough in that world to create that, certainly not now. I have a voiceover agent, and funnily enough, I used to do more voiceovers in the days when it wasn't a thing, in the days when they had actors do voiceovers and they'd get in touch with your agent, your theatre agent, and say, we'd like Carole to do blah, 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 blah. And then it became an industry in itself with voiceover agents and people with home studios. And I think it's just so massive now. when you get asked to do a test for something, you're not only up against everybody in your own voiceover agency, but you're up against everybody all over the UK and indeed internationally, I would say, because of the world that we live in now, of communication, where everybody's involved in an audition. So it's very sweet of you to compliment me on my voice, but I think there's a trillion other people out there who get in first.
So how did you enjoy the process of, because obviously recording audio is a very quick process. It's done, an hour's worth is done in a day.
Yeah.
And you obviously it's very different to the rehearsal you'd have back in television, back in the olden days. How did you find, and you don't have to learn your lines because they're right there in front of you. So how did you find that process? Was that just as enjoyable for you as an actress?
Yeah, I really liked it. I had to play an old woman, and I love doing characters. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the day. Yeah, I really enjoyed the day. It was good. Everybody was really sweet there. Yeah, it was fun.
Well, since Big Finish does do a lot of Blake Seven stuff, I reckon, Philip, we should talk to them about the ongoing adventures of Kira the Mutoid. Don't you think?
Yes, well, I just had Jason Hageley send me a message just then. I was thinking, yes, we need to get the Mutoid back.
I'd love to.
Can we chat? I mean, one of my favorite shows you also worked on was Professionals, and you did two significant roles, very different roles.
Yeah.
What was it like working on a very action-paced and working with Martin Shaw and Lewis Collins?
Yeah, it was great. I really loved them.
You're wrong. You're so wrong.
Come on, we all know about triadine.
What's that? The name of an opera?
Causes a massive heart attack within 20 minutes of application. Now, we should know we developed it.
Look, even if he did do some of the terrible things you say he did, do you honestly think I'd kill my own father?
No. Of course you wouldn't. How could you? Where's the real Anna Hastings? Huh? Oh, did you use triadine on her, too?
Martin is a fellow, well, we were vegetarian in those days. I don't know if he's a vegan now, but I'm a vegan. I was a veggie from 1973, and I've been a vegan now for about 11 or 12 years. Neither of my kids have ever eaten meat in their lives.
Right.
And so we had a bit of a rapport, Martin and I, because he's of the same, thoughts. And Lewis was just fun. He was just funny. I was very saddened, actually, that they didn't repeat the series, because I think that would have been probably good for Lewis had they done so, for us all, really.
When I pretended that man was you, did I or did I not condemn him to death?
Anna!
Tell me!
He was already dying. He had an incurable disease. He was a martyr for our country.
You're lying to me, Father.
I swear.
And off he went to America, and I don't think it was good for him out there. And he was he had a sort of air of I can't think of the right terminology, but that he was the guy, and I think that some women would probably go, I'm not going to let you just be that guy, So I think that what he really needed was to be given a big cuddle, a big loving cuddle, and I wish I had done that, actually. But he was so sort of blunt about it. If he found you mildly attractive, that you veered away a little bit. But actually, what one should do is say, thanks ever so much for that, and you're gorgeous, and now give me a big old kiss and shut up, That's what he needed. But he was adorable, and I really felt that he should have done more and for longer. And Martin, of course, politically, he and I were very much on the same page. Although I've never seen him, ever seen him since. I followed him on Facebook the other day. By sheer coincidence, there he was, and he followed me back. But we still haven't said anything to each other, but we just follow each other now.
Say something.
But it was, yeah, we should. But it was fun doing those. And again, it was fun doing two different characters. One of them, the one where I'm standing in the graveyard, Robert Urquhart, is he called?
Yeah, that's
lovely
right.
Scottish actor, gorgeous. And we had to be walking away from the grave, and we're in conversation. And because I'm concentrating on looking where I'm going, I suddenly dropped into a huge hole in the ground, and we had to cut. We were laughing. Are you okay? Is your ankle all right? Yes, it's all okay. And I do remember that specifically about that episode. Yeah, they were fun. They were good people, all good people.
See, it's interesting you talk about it not being repeated in the UK, because in Australia it was repeated constantly. So
Oh,
for
really? Is
years,
that right?
yep, for years it was repeated over and over again. I mean, I've seen every
wow.
episode several times because it's a constant repeat. And then
Oh,
whenever
I
it was on,
see.
I'd go and watch it again. So I've got it on DVD
Right.
now.
Yeah, I've got some. Yeah, you can get those things. I've got various DVDs, and yes, I don't know if I've got that or not. I think I might have.
So someone's been in the industry for 50 years. What are the changes you've seen that you think are the positive changes? What are the changes you think you've lost in terms of over time?
I suppose really we go back to some of the things that I've already said, such as in the old days, you being able to know who you're going to work with, and going in it being like going back to a family, that kind of thing. And I'm sad that everything is franchised and you never know. And the trouble for now is that we are so good at communication. We can reach everything worldwide. And it's lost the comfort and coziness of how the industry used to be, simply because I suppose it was smaller. And because it now extends globally. I mean, I say this to the kids. I mean, when Taran and I, my son's called Taran, were dealing with things after our loss, it is unbelievable how incompetent everybody is now. And we think it's because you have this facility to talk to anybody anywhere in the world because of our various computers and stuff. And it's almost as though the computers are much cleverer than we are. We've designed them, but we haven't actually managed to know how to deal with them. And Taran would make a call to somebody, and I'm not joking, he would be on the phone over a period of 3 weeks for 7 hours to 2 different companies who just couldn't take notes or press a little button that meant notes are saved, And I think that has a knock-on effect to our personalities. So that in the old days, you would be speaking to casting directors. You'd go in and you'd meet the casting directors. You do sometimes still, but it's often just over a Zoom thing, or you have to do these wretched, since COVID, these self-tapes. Thank you, and they are cold and arid and barren, and you don't get to talk about the piece, and you don't get to meet the director and see if you've got a rapport with them and be able to talk about the piece. And instead, you, the actor, are made to do all the work while they save money on a meeting room in town. And of course, I've spoken to Equity about it, and they've said, well, sometimes it is useful so that for those people who aren't actually physically able to get to a meeting, and I totally understand that, that's an advantage for sure. But there's so much that's lost by just the remoteness of everything now. And if you're asked to do a self-tape, you've got to set it up. You've got to find the thing. You've got to find the props. You've got to think about what you've got to wear. You've got to learn the lines. I mean, you know, you should be paid a bit of a wage for that. It takes up half a day at least. So that is certainly one element that I disagree with and dislike, although there are elements of it that can be good for some people. And I think that it's much more of a broad feeling that I have. So not specifically aligned to my sort of work. But these days, if people don't know quite how to deal with something, or they're too busy to get back to you, it's as though we have all become as remote as the devices that we use. So instead of just, as I do, because I'm OCD about most things actually, if you have no time to get back to somebody because of pressures, I get back and I say, I'm so sorry, I'm going to get back to you. So they know you've connected, they know you've received the call or the email or whatever it is. But these days, it seems to me, people just don't answer. They just are AWOL, and then you don't know. It happens in the music industry all the time, you know. They just don't reply. So you don't know, did they get the message? Are they not interested in the message? And that kind of, rudeness is part and parcel of this world that we now have, you know. So I suppose it affects other areas such as my business too. But I do say to my daughter, because Taryn is older, 12 years older than her, so he knew a bit about the old world, whereas she's been born into this one. I say, you have no idea how simple life used to be. You know, you made a phone call and you spoke to somebody, or you wrote a letter and they wrote a letter back. And, you know, it was an order that you knew and understood. And now it's just kind of, it's an open book as to how anybody's going to behave. And of course, because you've got things like social media, the horribleness of people, which is so plain to see, and it's terribly depressing. And the misinformation that goes out, so that wrong people get accused of doing stuff, and the repercussions of that. So it's not really a direct answer to your question specifically in terms of my business, but it's all sort of connected, I think, in a way.
Yeah, my kids get anxious if they've got to make a phone call now. It's a different world.
Sorry, the simple fact of, with social media being a non-verbal form of communication, there can be so many different interpretations drawn from the one sentence, and you don't actually get that connection.
That's
and
right.
There's so many misunderstandings because it's just a text, when it could be so much easier just with the sound of a voice or face to face.
That's right. Because there are so many connotations with the spoken voice. And if you're going to write a letter to somebody and you're very, very, you're a bit miffed with them for something, or vice versa, you can read it and think, my God, this is so rude, I can't believe it. But there would be qualifications if you were speaking it. You know, you would put an accent or a tone on how you were delivering what you were saying, so that a person would be able to understand that actually what you're saying is one thing, but how you're saying it means that you're not being really unpleasant or rude or something. And we've lost that by merely using the written word all the time.
So it's almost 50 years ago you made this program we want to talk about, which is just a bit bizarre. I'm not sure how you react to that.
It's like a parallel universe, you know. I just can't believe it. I look at people, politicians, grown-ups, real big grown-ups, and I go, I'm older than them. How can I be older than them? You know, it's a kind of disbelief you have when you get old.
Yeah. Now the show you're in received over 10 million viewers for the week. It only came in 45th in the charts, which is still, 45th is still great. But when you think 10 million viewers, any show today that gets 10 million viewers is a rarity.
I know. And The Outsider that I did with John Duttine, that got 10 million. but we had fewer channels, of course. We had
Yeah.
about 3 channels.
So what's it like in terms of knowing that something that you did so long ago is still being discussed and thought about and reacted to?
Well, it's great, actually. And especially if you're having a lean time, which I am, it's good to know that, you know, something that you did is still being enjoyed, for sure, for sure.
Yeah, there was one thing I wanted to mention, and you brought it up briefly before you spoke about being a vegan, and I did notice when I looked at your website on the links page, lots of links to different animal charities and things like that. So you have a big concern for animal welfare?
Absolutely, yeah. I gave up eating meat in 1973, one night after I'd come back late from drama school. My father was sitting in his chair in the living room watching the end of I, Claudius, and then a news item came on. And it was after the watershed, of course, and it was of a farmer shooting calves between the eyes and throwing them all on a pile where they were all still moving. And I looked at my sister was already a vegetarian. She became a veggie when she was about 9. I was 19 at this point. But I'd always been a latent one, if you know what I mean. And I was always very aware of it. There were certain things that I could not eat. You know, I couldn't possibly eat liver or any offal. So it all had to be indiscriminate. And even then, I had a weird feeling about it. But this consolidated it. And I said to my father, I'm never, ever, ever, ever going to eat meat again. And I never have. And I gave up fish shortly after that. And my husband wasn't even a vegetarian, but he did become a vegetarian after we were together. I'm not quite sure his father ever forgave me, but and he became, you know, not an activist as I have been, but very. He used to talk to people about it. If we had people come over to clean the windows and we made them a sandwich or something, I'd see Julian out there talking to them. So he had his more subtle ways of dealing with things than me. I'm a patron of 4 animal charities. Animal Aid is not, it's not a profit-making, it's a non-profit making company. And indeed, I was in Parliament Square yesterday because there was a debate in Parliament about this atrocious beagles factory, MBR Beagles Factory, who these creatures used because they're loving and trusting and compliant. And they never see the light of day. And as soon as they're old enough, they're sold around the world for vivisection and nothing but horror. So, yeah, I am very active in that department. And as I say, I haven't eaten meat since 73. The kids never have. And now I'm a vegan too, because to be a vegetarian in 1973 was really tricky. Bernard Shaw was a vegan back in the day, and he had to have his own cook because it was so difficult. But it was difficult in 73 as well. And you also got lambasted all the time because people were angry about you. You know, anger is their sort of defense. But now it's slightly easier because certainly in this country, it's become very much part of the climate change issue as well as the cruelty. So you can have a discussion with somebody without them, you know, really digging into you and being horrible to you. So it's slightly more civilized in this country now. But we've got a hell of a long way to go, because, you know, the vivisection. I'm a patron of Animal Free Research UK and Animal Aid and the Humane the Safer Medicines Trust and Friends of the Animals. Certainly Animal Aid, Safer Medicines and Animal Free Research UK are working these days with scientists who have decided to go down this path and who you can actually, eventually, what I'll do is I'll cut to the chase. What's going to happen eventually in the future is there will be no vivisection, because what will happen is that you take cells from people, individuals, and you can have a whole organ or even a whole person on a chip, and you design, tailor-make drugs for them, so that because you see you've got all of their information on a chip, and stem cell research comes into it as well. Because when you buy drugs, you know you always take out a leaflet as long as your arm, telling you about all the problems that could go wrong. And that's because they've gone wrong in animal tests and some humans. Animal tests, at least 92% of animal tests fail when it comes to human trials, which is why there's long things, long pieces of paper in boxes of pills. And you often, if you're a person who's unlucky enough to have to take lots of pills, a lot of the time, you then have to take lots of other pills to mitigate the effects of the pills that you're taking, and on and on and on it goes. So we've got a long way to go, and it won't be in my lifetime, but I have seen us come on a long way since 1973, which makes me feel I'd like to have come further, and we must get rid of the MBR vivisection laboratories because, they're breeding laboratories, and because it's just, we're bigger than that, we're greater than that, we are supposedly empathetic, intelligent human beings, but actually, at the end of the day, I get so disappointed that I find that animals, with their very acute individual intelligence, is higher than ours. I feed about 30 pigeons a morning. In fact, I haven't done them yet. They'll all be out there saying, "Where's breakfast?" And I've got one leg who's a special friend who I've known for a number of years, and her husband, because they have partners, and they are so bright. They know faces, they know times. They've got magnetic things in their beaks so they can whiz across the world and back again. All the things that we've got the brain to create. But what they also have is a simplicity of empathy. And of course, animals kill each other. If you're a lion or a tiger or something, people say, well, lions kill each other. But as somebody rather astutely said, because there are these people who speak fantastically, and this guy said to this girl, well, lions do it. He said, yeah, well, dogs and lions sniff each other's bottoms, but you wouldn't do that, would you? So there are things that people like to sort of say, yes, but we're animals, we're animals and we've got to do it. But of course, we are animals, but we're supposed to be sophisticated.
Being born in 1973 myself, I will always remember now that was the year you became a vegetarian.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for asking.
Well, Carole, listen, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you sharing so much of your life and your stories. It's been really lovely to meet you. Thank you so much.
It's been absolutely enchanting meeting both of you too, and thank you for inviting me.